Isn't it? I'm out here, baby. What's the business? Shalom, everybody. What's going down, man? What it is, what it ain't, what you can and what you can't, man. We out here, episode number 4 of Reading with Shiloh with the 27th book. The 27 sealed pages out here, man. We are heading into chapter 2 of The Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James about Mr. Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution. What's the business? What's up with you? How you doing? Welcome, 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 welcome. Come on in so we can begin. I need something with a little taste. Something with a little taste. And I took it to. So what's up with you, man? I'm ready to jump into it tonight. Oh, we about to read, baby. I'm about to read, baby. That's what I need, baby. About to read and maybe carve a little bit. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. So I can get back to finishing this one off. I done got a little ways to it. Then I got legs out. Gotta start jumping on the short area, the shorts area, and around the arms, and around the hands, whichever parts I need to make. The parts that I need to make go down or go back. That needs to be further back. But we'll probably do that either today or tomorrow. Just depends on what the weather is. It's storming right now out here, man. Wind is blowing. They say they're getting ready for big tornadoes and shit right now. So hey, Lord willing, everybody be safe and sound. I hope y'all safe and sound out there in YouTube land. Yeah, but we're gonna keep pushing, man. We keep pushing one book at a time. And right now we're on the 27th one. The 27th book. The 27th book to be assassinated. The 27th book that we can use to find the treasures and expose the truths that lie deep within. 27th book that we can use to stimulate our mind and our growth. What can we learn and grow from up in Mr. C.L.R. James's book, man? Hey, like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell your people Shiloh out here reading shit, man. We learning shit. We doing shit. We trying to be better. What's the business? When y'all come on in, man, hey, hit the chat. Say something in the chat so I can know the chat is working like it need to be working. And if I have time to respond, I see it, I'll respond. Hey, shalom. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Paula. Paula Petro. Paula Petro. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I feel like I need my pistol on me right now. Anyway, I'm hitting all type of stuff. Maybe it's the creaks and the cracks, but I'm gonna shoot somebody in the back. Nah, as long as they ain't in here, they ain't got nothing to worry about. But yeah, I'm gonna be like Mr. Toussaint Louverture if they pop up in my shit. Take that. Mm-hmm. So far so good. We are on chapter 2. We are on chapter 2. We've made it to chapter 2 of the book. After it's the 4th session, the 4th episode. And chapter 2 is the owners. Chapter 1 was the property. The property. Very, very graphic depiction and foretelling and description of the things that were done to the property of the French, of the British, and others who had their hands down in Haiti or Jamaica and some of the other islands. Very, very descriptive by Mr. C.L.R. James. Very descriptive. Stuff that made me mad. Wanted to kick a motherfucking ass. Shalom, shalom. Nope. Shalom, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. Roman 1. Yeah. So, before we get into chapter 2 of Mr. C.L.R. James's Mr. C.L.R. James's Sea of Pages, before we get into Mr. C.L.R. James' pages, sea of pages, before we get to rowing and see how much we can traverse tonight, what distance we can go, let's get our things done. We're going to work our body, work our mind, and work our body. That is the routine that I'm working on. And if you can work on it, man, come on, you can work on it with me, man. You can work on it with me. Let's get the routine going, because maybe your body needs some work, man. Who is that? Oh, ain't that a bitch? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord, my shit gone. Where's my shit? Is that what the dog fucking barking about? Oh, ain't that about a mother? Oh. Oh, man, it took my whole damn thing, man. Man, it took my whole gazebo. Like I said, this tornado, they say tornado's supposed to be happening tonight, man. My whole gazebo is flipped the hell over, man. It's flipped the hell over. Hey, give me a second right quick. Let me go check on this shit right quick. I didn't know it's like that. Give me a second. I knew I heard something. Ooh, woo! Gazebo, not the gazebo. Oh, no. Oh, shit. My bad, everybody. Damn, man. My gazebo has been flip-flopped and turned upside down. I'm about to put my boots on, but I'm going to read first. So, hey, be careful out there, everybody, man. The wind is picking up real bad down here. I hate that my gazebo is out of there, man. Yeah, go ahead and sub. Note or Nate. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I appreciate it. It definitely helps the channel grow. Every sub helps the channel grow. My gazebo out of there, baby. It's over. Man, it's over. Damn. Anyway. All right, let's get into it, man. 25 things. Shit, man, I can't. Oh, damn, my gazebo is on the ground. Flipped upside down. Hopefully, since it's flipped upside down, hopefully it won't blow no more. Because there's nothing to blow. But boy, when I flip that thing back over, oh wee. But anyway, 25 things. Come on, I'm going to give you 25 push-ups. Hey, y'all give me 25 somethings. Whatever you're going to do. 25 things. Let's work our body a little bit, and then we'll work our mind. Work our body a little bit, and then we're going to work our mind, man. 25 things. What you got? What you got in you, man? Let's do something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. At least I ain't got to worry about it no more. Damn. 13. Shit. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. That shit pissed me off. 20. But don't worry about what you can't control, I guess. 21. 22. 23. 24. 25. Shit, man. Oh, man. My gazebo. The gazebo. Oh, Lord. That was 25 things. That's all I asked of you. 25 things. Get your body moving. Get your heart pumping. Shit, jumping, jacks, squats, whatever it is. 25 things. Just do 25 songs. I know it's kind of late. It's getting late. Oh, some people it's getting early. Excuse me. 12:28. Damn, I can't believe my gazebo is out there. Anyway, we're going to read for about an hour into chapter 2 and see how far we can go into chapter 2. Let's get it. Shalom, shalom, shalom once again. Welcome back to part 4 of the Black Jacobins. Now, I love the feel of the cover. It's not smooth. It's kind of, it's got like a little waxy feel. And I guess that's to help maintain the colors on the front, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. All right, let's get it. Chapter 2, The Black Jacobins, the Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution by C.L.R. James. The sea of pages we're going to roll tonight, and let's roll. Chapter 2, The Owners. Of the 3 San Domingo planters, the British bourgeois and the French bourgeoisie, and the first and most important were the planters of San Domingo. On such a soil as San Domingo, slavery, only a vicious society could flourish, and nor were the incidental circumstances such as to mitigate the demoralization inherent in such a method of production. I'm trying to think how I'm gonna get this gazebo to stay. San Domingo is an island of mountain ranges rising in places to 6,000 feet above sea level. From these flow innumerable streams coalescing into rivers which water the valleys and not inconsiderable plains lying between the hills. Its distance from the equator gives an unusual lusciousness and variety to the natural exuberance of the tropics, and the artificial vegetation was not inferior to the natural. Field upon field, the light green sugarcane low and continually rippled in the breeze and enclosed the factory and the dwelling houses like a sea. And a few feet above the cane stalks waved the 5-foot leaves of the banana trees. Near the dwelling houses, the branches of the palm, crowning the perfectly rounded and leafless column of 60 or 70 feet, gave forth, like huge feathers, a continuous soothing murmur, while groups of them in the distance, always visible in the unclouded tropical air, looked like clusters of giant umbrellas waiting for the parched and sun-baked traveler. In the season, mango and orange trees, solitary or in groves, were a mass of green leaves and red and golden fruit. Thousands of small, scrupulously tidy coffee trees rose on the slopes of the hills, and the abrupt and precipitous mountainsides were covered to the summits with the luxuriant tropical overgrowth and precious hardwood forests of San Domingo. And the travelers from Europe was enchanted at his first glimpse of this paradise, in which the ordered beauty of agriculture and the Prodigality. What is that? What is a prodigality? And the prodigality of nature competed equally for his surprise and admiration. Prodigality. Prodigality. Prodigality.
According to Wikipedia, probability is the branch of mathematics and statistics.
Prodigality.
According to Wikipedia, probability is the branch.
Prodigality. Prodigality is the act of spending money, time, or energy in a wasteful or unwise way. It can also refer to the lack of care or prudence in managing resources. Prodigality, not prodigality, prodigality. Prodigality. But it was monotonous. There we go. But it was monotonous. Year in, year out, day after day, it was the same. A little greener in the wet season, a little browner in the dry. And the wilder scenery was constantly magnificent. But in the colonists who had seen the same domestic landscape from his earliest hour, it awakened little response. To the immigrant, who was at first charmed and exhilarated, monotony bred indifference, which could develop into active dislike, and the longing for the seasons returning with the year. The climate was harsh, and for the Europeans of the 18th century without modern knowledge of tropical hygiene, almost intolerable. The burning sun and humid atmosphere took heavy toll on all newcomers, European and African alike. And the African died, but the Europeans' ailments were dreaded by the planters whose knowledge and habits were powerless to combat them. Fever and dysentery. In the hot season, cold, rheumatism, nasal catarrhs, and diarrhea in the wet. And at all times, disinclination for the sustained labor fostered by the gluttony and lasciviousness bred by abundance and scores of slaves waiting to perform any duty, from pulling off shoes to spending the night. Indulgence had the white colonial in its grip from childhood. I want an egg, said the colonial child. There are none. Then I want two. This notorious anecdote was characteristic, and to the unhealthiness of the climate and the indulgence of every wish were added to the open licentiousness and habitual ferocity of his parents, the degradation of human life, which surrounded the child on every side. The ignorance inherent in rural life prior to the Industrial Revolution was reinforced by the irascibility and the conceit, and the conceit of isolation allied to undisputed domination over hundreds of human beings. What is this word? Irascibility. Irascibility is a noun that means the tendency to be easily angered or have a short temper. For example, you might describe someone as having a reputation for irascibility. Synonyms for irascibility: quick temper, short temper, spleen, bad temper, or ill temper. Irascibility. Etymology of the word irascible comes from the Latin word ira, which means anger or rage, and the suffix sc in the middle of irascible means becoming. Irascibility. The plantations were often miles apart, and on those days of horse traffic and a few and bad roads in a mountainous country, communication with neighbors was difficult and rare. And the planters hated the life and sought only to make enough money to retire to France or to at least spend a few months in Paris, luxuriating in the amenities of the civilization. With so much to eat and drink, there was a lavish hospitality, which was remained a tradition, but the majority of the great houses, contrary to the legend, were poorly furnished, and their owners looked on them as rest houses in the intervals of the trips to Paris. Seeking to overcome their abundant leisure and boredom with food, drink, dice, and black women, they had long before 1789 lost the simplicity of life and rude energy of those nameless men who laid the foundation of the colony. A manager and an overseer, and the more intelligent of their slaves were more than sufficient to run their plantations. As soon as they could afford it, they left the island, and if possible, never to return. And though they never formed in France so rich and powerful a social and political force as the West Indian interest in England, the women were subjugated to the same evil influences, and in the early years of the colony, they had been imported like slaves and machinery. And most of the first arrivals were the sweepings of the Paris gutter, bringing to the island bodies as corrupt as their manners and serving only to infect the colony. Another official asking for women begged the authorities not to send the ugliest they could find in the hospitals. And as late as 1743, official San Domingo was complaining that France still sent girls whose aptitude for generation was for the most part destroyed by too great usage. It was hoes. Too great usage. Projects for some educational systems never came to fruition, and with increasing wealth, the daughters of the richer planters went to Paris, where, after a year or two at the finishing school, they made distinguished matches with the impoverished French nobility. But in the colony, they passed their time attiring themselves and singing stupid songs and listening to the gossip and adulation of their slave attendants. Passion was their chief occupation, stimulated by overfeeding, idleness, and on an undying jealousy of the black and mulatto women who competed so successfully for the favors of their husbands and lovers. To the men of diverse races, classes, and types who formed the early population of San Domingo, who had been added as the years passed, a more unified and cohesive element, the offshoots of the French aristocracy, deprived of political power by Richelieu and converted by Louis the 14th into the decorative and administrative appendage of the absolute monarchy. The younger sons of French noblemen found in San Domingo some opportunity to rebuild their stature, their shattered fortunes, and live the life of the country magnate now denied them in France. And they came as officers in the army and officials and stayed to found fortunes and families. They commanded the militia, administered a rude justice, and arrogant and spendthrift, yet there were a valuable section of the white San Domingo society, and knit together more firmly a society composed of such diverse and disintegrated elements. But even their education, traditions, and pride were not proof against the prevailing corruption, and one could see a relation of the Vaudres, Chateauneuf, or the Boussicat, the last descendants of the famous Marshal of France, passing his life between a bowl of rum and a Negro concubine. Town life is the nurse of civilization, but apart from Port-au-Prince, the capital, and Port Francis, the towns of San Domingo at the height of the prosperity were little more than villages, And in 1789, St. Mark had only 150 houses, and Mollet, St. Nicholas, the Gibraltar of the Caribbean Sea, had only 250. And Leogene, one of the most important towns in the West Province, consisted of between 300 and 400 houses laid out in 15 streets. And Jacmel, one of the key towns in the south, had only 40. Even Cap Francis, and Paris and the Antilles, and the entrepot of the European trade had a population of only 20,000, of whom half were slaves. Yet La Cap, as it was familiarly called, was a town famous in its time and in its way unique. An incident activity reigned there, with its harbor always filled with ships and its streets with merchandise. But it too bore the imprint of savagery which seemed inseparable from everything connected with San Domingo. One of the most distinguished colonial historians, Moray of Sainte Marie, admits that the streets were sewers and that people threw all their garbage into them. And the government begged people in vain not to commit nuisances in the street and to be careful of the disposition of fecal matter, not to let sheep, pigs, and goats wander loose. And no one paid any attention to these injunctions. And in Port-au-Prince, the official capital of the colony, the population washed their dirty linen, made indigo, and soaked manioc in the water of the only spring which supplied the town. And despite repeated prohibitions, they continued to beat their slaves in the public streets. And nor were the authorities themselves more careful. If it rained at night, one could not walk in the town the next day, and the streams of water filled the ditches at the sides of the streets, in which one could hear the croaking of toads. That make it sound like when I was in the woods. There Wimpfen called Port-au-Prince a Tartar camp, and Moreau de Sainte Marie himself a colonial, and deprecates the sharpness and of the expression, but admits that it was not entirely inapplicable. Such culture as there were centered in these towns in La Cap, there were various Masonic and other societies, and the most famous of which was the Philadelphia Circle, a body devoting itself to politics, philosophy, and literature. But the chief reading of the population consisted of lascivious novels. For amusement, there were theaters, and not only in La Cap and Port-au-Prince, but in such small towns as Leogene, and St. Mark, where the melodramas and the thrillers of the day were played to pack houses. And in 1787, there were 3 companies in Port-au-Prince alone. What the towns lacked in intellectual fare, they made up in the opportunities of debauchery. Gambling dens for everyone in San Domingo played, and great fortunes were won and lost in a few days. Dance halls and private brothels, whereby the mulatto women lived in such comfort and luxury that in 1789, of 7,000 mulatto women in San Domingo, 5,000 were either prostitutes or the kept mistresses of white men. The regular clergy of San Domingo, instead of being a moderating influence, were notorious for their irreverence and degeneracy. In the early years, they consisted chiefly of unfrocked monks. Later came a better class of priests. But in that turgid, unheated society, few were able to withstand the temptations of easy money, easy living, and easy women. Many of them lived openly with their concubines, and their greed for money led them to exploit the Negroes with the same ruthlessness as the rest of the whites in San Domingo. About the middle of the 18th century, one of them used to baptize the same Negroes 7 or 8 times for the ceremony amused the slaves, and they were willing to pay a small sum for each baptism. As late as 1790, another was competing with the Negro Oberman for the coppers of the slaves, and by selling charms against illness and talismans to ensure the success of their petty ventures, In the towns, the great merchants and the wealthy agents of the maritime bourgeoisie were included with, let me look up that word, how to pronounce that word. Bourgeoisie. That's what I think it is. Bourgeoisie. 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 B-O-U-R-G.
Bourgeoisie.
The bourgeoisie. Oh, I was wrong like a mother. The bourgeoisie. The maritime bourgeoisie. 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 The middle class is a social group between the rich and the poor, especially the people thought to have a strong interest in supporting traditional customs and values. The new bourgeoisie, which was created by the Industrial Revolution, had money to spend and wanted to travel. The bourgeoisie. In the towns, the great merchants and the wealthy agents of the maritime bourgeoisie were included with the planters as big whites. And on the plantations, the managers and the stewards were either agents of the absentee owners or were under the eye of the planter himself and therefore subordinate to him. These in the country and in the towns, the small lawyers, the notaries, the clerks, the artisans, the grocers, were known as the small whites. And included among the small whites was a crowd of city vagabonds and fugitives from justice, escaped galley slaves and debtors unable to pay their bills, adventurers seeking adventure or quick fortunes, and men of all crimes and of all nationalities. From the underworld of 2 continents they came, Frenchmen and Spaniards, Maltese, Italians, Portuguese, and Americans, for whatever a man's origins, record, or character, here his white skin made him a person of quality, and rejected or failures in their own country flocked to San Domingo, where consideration was achieved at so cheap a price. Money flowed and opportunities of debauchery abounded. No small white was a servant, and no white man did any work that he could get a Negro to do for him. A barber summoned to attend to a customer appeared in silk attire, hat under his arm, sword at his side, cane under his elbow, followed by 4 Negroes. One of them combed the hair, another dressed it, a third curled it, and the 4th finished. While they worked, the employer presided over the various operations, and at the slightest slackness, at the slightest mistake, he boxed the cheek of the unfortunate slave so hard that often he knocked him over. The slave picked himself up without any sign of resentment, and resumed, and the same hand which had knocked over the slave closed on an enormous fee, and the barber took his exit with the same insolence and elegance as before. This was the type from whom race prejudice was more important than even the possession of slaves. Of which they held few, and the distinction between the white man and the man of color was for them fundamental. It was their all. And in defense of it, they would bring down the whole of their world. Big whites and small whites did not exhaust the white population of San Domingo. And over them both was the bureaucracy composed almost entirely of Frenchmen from France who governed the island, and the heads of the bureaucracy were the governor and the intendant. The governor was the official representative of the king, with all that this implies even to this day in the administration of distant colonies. His official salary might be as much as 100,000 livres a year, and besides the profits common to such posts in the 20th as well as in the 18th century, the granting of concessions, the acting on the quiet as an agent for European merchandise in the colonies and for colonial merchandise in Europe. A French nobleman was as greedy as the governorship of San Domingo as his British counterpart for the viceroyalty of India. And in 1787, the governor was a brother to the French ambassador in London, and he left the post of governor to become minister of marine. Next to the governor was the intendant, who was responsible for justice, finance, and general administration, and sometimes drew a salary of 80,000 livres a year. And the governor was a soldier, the aristocrat, and the attendant was the bureaucrat, and the military was the civil, where constantly at variance. But against the local whites, they had their staff. The commandments in the districts and the senior officials represented the king's authority and the commercial privileges of the French bourgeoisie. They could arrest without warrant, and they could refuse to carry out the instructions of the minister. They could force the members of the local adversary council to resign, could grant favors and pronounce confiscations, increase taxes, and in fact, their arbitrariness had no legal bounds, and God was too high and the king too far. The colonists hated them, and in addition to their absolute power, they were wasteful and extravagant. Their malversations were constant and enormous, and they treated the local whites with an arrogance and a superciliousness that galed these little potentates with their 200 or 300 slaves. There were good and bad governors, good and bad intendants, as there were good and bad slave owners. But this was a matter of pure chance, and it was the system that was bad. There was some pretense at local self-government, and both at La Camp and at Port-au-Prince, there were local councils which registered the royal edicts and decisions of the local government. And shortly before the revolution, there was also appointed a council of the richest and the most powerful of the whites who were supposed to represent local opinion. But the intendant, like the governor and the British legislative councils of today, could accept or reject their advice as he pleased. The bureaucracy, with the source of its power so many thousands of miles away, could not depend only on the 2 French regiments of the colony. In 1789, the functionaries of San Domingo, where the white population was about 30,000, numbered only 513. And without some mass support government, would have been impossible, bringing with them from France the traditional hostility of the absolute monarchy to the political power of the feudal nobility. The bureaucrats sought a counterweight to the power of the planters in the small whites of town and country. And the chief complaint of the small whites was against the militia, which policed the districts and frequently encroached on the intendant's administration of justice and finance. To these complaints, the intendant was always sympathetic, and in 1760, one intendant went as far as to dissolve the militia altogether and appointed syndics to carry on the local government. The colony was thrown into disorder, and the home government had to reestablish the militia and restore its former power to the military. Straightway, an insurrection broke out on the island, led by the local justices of the peace, the lawyers, the notaries, and prosecutors. The planters complained that the supporters of this rebellion were the lowest section of the population in one district: 3 Portuguese Jews, a notary, a steward, a tailor, a shoemaker, a butcher's assistant, and a former soldier of the ranks. The scorn of the planters is overwhelming, and these rascals who have occasioned these troubles, and of whom we can say with justice that they are the vilest Conel, whose fathers and mothers have been lackeys or domestic servants, or even of an origin still lower. It was not their low origin which justified the attack of the planters upon the small whites. Tailors, butchers, and soldiers from the ranks were to play the decisive part in the French Revolution, and by their spontaneous efforts save Paris from the counter-revolution at home and abroad. But most of the small whites were a ramble and filled no important function in the economy of the colony. And if every single one of them had been deported from the country, such work as they did could have been done by free mulattoes, free blacks, or even slaves. They were not an integral part of the San Domingo society, in either by function, birth, or tradition, but they were white, and as such of use to the bureaucracy. In 1771, we found the intendant again complaining of military tyranny, and since the militia are reestablished, he complains the officers are every day depriving the ordinary judges of all their prerogatives. Let's see. Prerogatives. Is it my prerogative? Ordinary judges of all their prerogatives? No, prerogatives. Let's see. Prerogatives.
Here's the definition of prerogative: a right or privilege exclusive to a particular individual or class.
That's not how it don't say, it is, if you pronounce it prerogative.
Prerogative.
It's pronounced prerogative, but it's spelled prerogative. Before. Here then was the first great division, that between great whites and small whites, with the bureaucracy balancing between and encouraging the small whites. Nothing could assuage or solve this conflict, and the moment the revolution begins in France, these two will spring at each other and fight to the finish. There was another class of free men in San Domingo, the free mulattoes and free blacks, and neither legislation nor the growth of race prejudice could destroy the attraction of the black woman for the white men of San Domingo. It was characteristic of all classes, and the ramble on the shore front, and the planters or overseer who chose a slave to pass the night with him and drove her from his bed to the lash of the slave driver the next morning. A governor of the colony newly arrived from France, who was disturbed at finding himself seized with a passion for the handsomest of the 4 black maids. Let me pause. Let me see how far to chapter 3. Ooh-wee. We got a ways to go. Got a ways to go. I'll probably read about 2 more pages. In early days, every mulatto was free up to the age of 24. Not by law, but because white men were so few in comparison with the slaves that the masters sought to bind these intermediates to themselves rather than let them swell the ranks of their enemies. In those early years, race prejudice was not strong, and the Negro Code in 1685 authorized marriage between the whites and the slave who had children by him, the ceremony freeing herself and her children. The code gave the free mulattoes and the free Negroes equal rights with the whites. But as the white population grew larger, white San Domingo discarded the convention and enslaved or sold their numerous children like any king of the African jungle. All efforts to prevent concubinage failed, and the mulatto children multiplied to be freed or to remain slaves at the caprice of their fathers. What does the caprice mean? What does caprice mean? I got a caprice, but I didn't know it was a. I didn't know it was a word that could be used in that manner. Caprice.
Here's the definition of caprice: a sudden and unaccountable change of mood or behavior.
And the mulattoes' children multiplied to be freed or to remain slaves at the mood of their fathers, at the unaccountable change of mood or behavior of their fathers, at the caprice of their fathers. Many were freed, becoming artisans and household servants, and they began to amass property, and the whites, while aiding unceasingly to the number of mulattoes, began to restrict and harass them with malicious legislation. The whites threw as much as possible of the burdens of the country upon them. On attaining their majority, they were compelled to join the Maréchaussée, a police organization for arresting fugitive Negroes. Let me see that. The Maréchaussée. 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 Maréchaussée.
Take your next giant leap online with Purdue University. This word from French, originally. In French, in France, it is pronounced as maréchaussée. Maréchaussée.
I was close.
Maréchaussée. So,
the maréchaussée.
Perfectly. Maréchaussée.
Maréchaussée. The maréchaussée. A police organization for arresting fugitive Negroes, protecting travelers on the high road, and capturing dangerous Negroes, fighting against the Maroons, and all the difficult and dangerous tasks which the local whites might command. And after 3 years' service in the Maréchaussée, they had to join the local militia, provide their own arms and ammunition and accoutrements, and without pay or allowance of any kind, serve at the discretion of the white commanding officer. And such duties as the forced upkeep of the roads were made to fall on them with extra severity. They were excluded from the naval and military departments and from the practice of law, medicine, and divinity, and all public offices or places of trust. A white man could trespass on a mulatto's property, seduce his wife or daughter, insult him in any way he chose, and certain that at any hint of resentment or revenge that all the whites and the government would rush out ready to lynch. In legal actions, the decision nearly always went against the mulattoes, and to terrorize them into submission, a free man of color who struck a white man, whatever his station in life, was to have his right arm cut off. Ooh-wee. But by some fortunate chance, the amount of property that they could hold was not, as in the English islands, limited. A fine physique and intelligent, administering their enterprises themselves without exhausting their fortunes in extravagant trips to Paris, they began to acquire wealth as master artisans and then as proprietors. As they began to establish themselves, the jealousy and envy of the white colonists were transformed into furious hatred and fear. They divided the offspring of white and black and intermediate shades into 128 divisions, and the true mulatto was a child of a pure black and the pure white. The child of the white and the mulatto woman was a quarteron. Let's see how you pronounce it. Quarteron. Quarteron. Quarteron is an absolute term. How do you pronounce it? Quarteron pronunciation. A quarteron. The French word quarteron, pronounced roughly as quarteron, is a noun meaning a person with 1/4 African, Aboriginal, and 3/4 European ancestry. Similar to the English quadroon, a quarteron. The child of the white and the mulatto woman was a quarteron with 96 parts white and 32 parts black. But a quarteron could be produced by the white and by the maraba on the proportion of 88-40, or by the white and the C.L.R in the proportion of 72-56, and so on, all through the 128 varieties. But the sangmile with 127 white parts and 1 black part was still a man of color. And in a slave society, the mere possession of the personal freedom is the valuable privilege, and the laws of Greece and Rome testify that severe legislation against slaves and freedmen have nothing to do with the race question. Behind all this elaborate tomfoolery of quarteron and C.L.R and Marabu was the one dominating fact of San Domingo society: fear of the slaves. And the mother of the mulattoes were in the slave gangs, and they had half brothers there. And however much the mulatto himself might despise the half of his origin, he was at home among the slaves, and in addition to his wealth and education, could have an influence among them which a white man could never have. Furthermore, apart from physical terror, the slaves were to be kept in subjection, by associating inferiority and degradation with the most obvious distinguishing mark of the slave, the black skin. And few of the slaves being able to read, the colonists did not hesitate to say openly It is essential to maintain the great distance between those who obey and those who command. And one of the surest means of doing this is the perpetuation of the imprint that slavery has once given. No mulatto, therefore, whatever his number of white parts, was allowed to assume the name of his white father. But despite these restrictions, the mulattoes continued to make progress. And by 1755, little more than 3 generations after the Negro Code, they were beginning to fill the colony. And their growing numbers and riches was causing alarm to the whites, I bet. Let's try to find us a good stopping point. We'll read this last paragraph. We're going to flip the page, but we're going to read this last paragraph. Or so. Paragraph and a half. They lived, ran a report, like their forebears, on the local vegetation. I'll check it out later. They lived, ran a report, like their forebears on the local vegetables, drinking no wine, confining themselves to the local liquors, brewed from the sugarcane, and thus their personal consumption contributed nothing to the maintenance of the important trade with France. Their sober ways of living and their small expenditure enabled them to put away most of their income every year. They accumulated immense capital and grew more arrogant as their wealth increased. They bid for all properties on sale in the various districts and raised prices to such fantastic heights that the whites who were not wealthy could not buy, or ruined themselves by attempting to keep pace with them, trying to keep up with the Joneses. Thus, in some districts, the finest properties were in the possession of the half-castes, and yet they were everywhere at least ready to submit to statute, labor, and to public dues. Their plantations were the sanctuary and asylum of the freedmen who had neither work nor profession, and of numerous fugitive slaves who had run away from their gangs. Being so rich, they imitated the style of the whites and sought to drown all traces of their origin. And they were trying to get high commands in the militia, and those who had ability enough to make them forget the vice of their origin were even seeking places in the judiciary. If this sort of thing went on, they would soon be making marriages with distinguished families, and which would bind these families in alliance with the slaves and the gangs whence the mothers of these upstarts came. I think we'll stop right there. I think a better stopping point would have been the next page. I mean, I stopped on page 40, but I think a better stopping point would be on page 42. But man, I think we'll go ahead and stop there, though. We'll go ahead and stop there. Let me mark my spot. It was warned against the mulattoes, man. The mulattoes didn't have it no different. At first, it was fine, and then it was like, nope. Hell nah. You got to get the hell out of here, my boy. Mulatto. The original Christians, huh? Hey, that was today's rowing session in episode 4 of Reading with Shallow. As we search through these sea of pages, the Black Jacobins, who are the original Jews, most likely, the Black Jacobins. By Mr. C.L.R. James, the book about Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution Let's see what this sucker talking about. Let's see what this sucker talking about. Yeah, salvation is of the Jews, baby. The real ones, the copper color ones. But anyway, we're not going into that. Sabbath is over. That should have been a Sabbath question you asked. But right now we're reading about the Black Jacobins. Or we were reading about that. And despite that, you have all that you need to succeed the same way they did, as they succeeded. Even in their low estate, even in their low places, they still succeeded at what they did. They still turned out to be better than those who had captured them. And those that had captured them didn't last long. Even though it was another one after another one after another one, they most times died off because they couldn't even handle the temperature. They couldn't handle the environment. They couldn't handle the place. And in the revolution, according to the other book, that was used against them. That was used against them very much, and helped out a great deal within the revolution. Many armies, many soldiers died due to the heat, the tropical environment, the dysentery, the other disease, the malaria, and other diseases that came from being in those places where they weren't used to being, where they are not meant to be. But that's how it happened to you. I'm not mad. I'm not going to be mad. I'll be glad. The pink people, the pink folks. The pink folks sail from coast to coast, trying to do the most. They bragged and they boast about their big-ass boats. But when it came to the Haitian revolutions, the slaves cut them in their throats. They burned their houses and took their posts. Went with the Maroons and made the French look like buffoons. Oh, yes, indeed. But, hey, Toussaint, they haven't even got to Toussaint yet, for real, in this book. But so far, so good. The owners. That was the beginning of chapter 2, the owners. And we have traversed, about a third of the way. About a third of the way. Especially if I section it off into 3 parts. We've traversed a third of the way of chapter 2 on our way to chapter 3. And chapter 3 will be Parliament and Property. Chapter 3 will be Parliament and Property, but we're way away from that. We're good ways from that. We're about 2 days away. 2 days away from that. I'll probably get up and read tomorrow before we go fishing. If the weather, depending on the weather, I'm going to get up here after I get off here, go put my boots on and try to flip my gazebo back over. But I'm kind of thinking, like, why should I flip the gazebo back over, knowing that the wind is supposed to be windy all night? Tornado weather all night. And if it flipped it over once, it can flip it over again. But I'd rather have it on the ground. I mean, I'd rather have it flipped right side up than flipped upside down. But we'll see. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody that came in, left a comment. No matter what it is, any comment, good or bad, tomfoolery, humbug, or otherwise. I appreciate them all. It helps the channel. And that's part of the objective, is help the channel to grow. So, and you have all you need to succeed. I have all I need to succeed. So we're going to do so. And we're going to do so in completing the mission. And right now, the mission is to keep going on the Black Jacobins, to traverse to the end, to the X marks the spot. So what can we learn and grow from? What treasures await us? What can we find? What truths can we expose? What lies can we uproot? What plantations can we burn down in our mind? We got to keep going. You know, the things written aforetime were written for our learning. And this is part of it. This is part of it. The things that are written aforetime was written for our learning. And we can learn a lot from these things. We can learn a lot from the books. We can learn a lot from the mindsets that most of them had. You know, but hey, people talk gangster, but Toussaint was gangster. Especially once it got down to it. Once it got down to it, and it was like, man, we're going to get rid of all them whites out here. Man, everybody got to die. Men, women, and children. Everybody got to get kicked off the island. That's gangster right there. That's gangster. People ain't really talking like that no more. They don't want that type of revolution. And even within that revolution, that's why the so-called Americans was scared. They were scared of this information coming back to the States. They were scared of the Haitians that was bringing this information. A lot of this information was banned when it came here. And it settled here in Louisiana. A lot of this stuff settled here in Louisiana because the port in New Orleans was one of the main places, especially where a lot of the Creoles went, especially a lot of Haitians came here. Opelousas being the third oldest city in Louisiana was also part of Louisiana Purchase and sold in that part, or given in that purchase, in the purchase, Louisiana Purchase, as some might say. But we got to keep going and keep seeing what we can learn and grow from. And it's plenty to learn and grow from. I just hate stopping in the middle of I hate stopping. I wish it had more. I mean, I appreciate it. It's a good book so far, good reading, a lot of, man, the words, you know, it paints a vivid picture for sure. It paints a vivid picture. But some of the words, I mean, it's all right. It's very readable. I hate stopping in the middle of a continuous thought that Mr. C.L.R. James is trying to place, a picture that he's trying to paint. I hate stopping in the middle of it. But, hey, within an hour read, you got to do what you got to do. You know, I wish it was more of, but this is only for my reading and because I'm reading to y'all, more of a sectioned off thing within each chapter. Like they had a part 2, part 3, a A, B, C, D, or whatever. So that way I can have more of a vantage point to stop at and to stop and start where we're not picking up right in the middle of a thought or something he's trying to explain. And it would be easier to pick up on it, or easier to pick back up on it. It's not hard. It's just for those who may not have been watching and may not have been listening, for those who may come in late and to pick up there, might throw them off a little bit. But anyway, still good rowing today. Good rowing through the sea of pages. And we'll keep rowing through the sea of pages until we finish. Just like we'll keep rowing through the sea of pages called the Bible until we finish that as well. There's definitely plenty to learn. Definitely plenty to know. Definitely plenty to study and show ourselves approved. And no matter what book we have, no matter what book we use, what can you take? What can we learn and grow from? Once again, appreciate everybody. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your people SHILO out here reading shit, baby. Doing shit, growing shit, learning shit. Trying to be better. That should be the objective. Better yourself. Expand your mind. Expand your mind. Hold on to that which is good. Let go of the humbug. Remove the humbug. Okay, you keep pushing. So we did 25 things to start. We worked our body, we worked our mind. Now let's work our body on the going out one last time. We did 25 things to start. Let's do 25 things to end. Whatever it may be. 25 things. 25 of them. Man, 25 lighters on the dresser. Let's get it. Whatever it's going to be. What you going to do? What you going to do? Oh, I'm going to do something. What you going to do? I'm going to do something. 25 of them, whatever it is, man. Don't cheat yourself. Do something that you go feel it, you know, at least 25. And hopefully 25 can help start your habit. Hopefully 25 can start your habit and help build upon it. Hopefully you can build upon it. Get better, like I said, get better on a daily, better. 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We all the way up. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I thought I saw something in my beard. It's just some gray hairs. Hiya. Peace from the original Christian, huh? Shalom, shalom, shalom. Oh, now everybody want to come in now at the end. We about to go though. We about to go though. That's what we about to do. That's what I'm about to do. I'm about to go. I'm about to go and try to maybe start carving, I guess. I feel up. I might try to carve. I'll see. But anyway, man. Shalom, everybody. I appreciate those who stayed in. I appreciate those who listened. I appreciate it. Everybody. Keep pushing so I can make it to 1,000 subscribers and 2,000 and 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 and so on and so forth. And we're going to keep reading, man. We're going to keep reading and being a pirate on the sea of pages. We're going to keep being a book assassin. We're going to keep being the destroyer of worlds, Shiloheimer. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing and then doing my part in the revolution. So, till next time, till the next episode, till next episode 5, man. Go back if you want to start off the beginning of the book. The book is The Black Jacobins, Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution by C.L.R. James. And we'll keep pushing. We'll keep pushing. See y'all next time. Shalom, everybody. I'm out here. Shalom out.